It was close to midnight when I heard the knock, sharp, frantic, echoing through the quiet of my half-empty house like a scream. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't expected anyone for months, not since my wife packed her things, left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter, and disappeared into someone else's arms. The sound came again, faster this time. I set down my glass, whiskey and regret, my nightly routine, and walked to the door. The motion light flickered on, painting my porch in a pale, jittery glow. That's when I saw him. Tom, the man my wife left me for. He looked nothing like the arrogant, smirking guy I'd seen in those photos on her phone, the ones that shattered 20 years of marriage with a single scroll. This version of him was pale, trembling, his eyes darting around like he was being followed. His shirt was half untucked, collar damp with sweat, and his voice cracked the second he spoke. John, thank God. She's gone. I stared at him. What do you mean, gone? He shook his head, chest rising fast. Mary, she's missing. She vanished. For a moment, I thought it was some kind of twisted joke. Maybe he wanted to hurt me again. One more jab from the man who'd already taken everything. But then I saw the fear in his eyes. It wasn't fake. This was real. Start from the beginning, I said, my voice low, steady, though my pulse hammered in my throat. He swallowed hard. We were at her apartment. She said she wasn't feeling well, that she needed to rest. I went to grab something from the store. I was gone maybe 20 minutes. When I came back, the door was wide open. Her phone was on the counter, her car still in the lot. But she was gone, John. Just gone. I crossed my arms. You call the police? Of course, he said, wiping a hand across his mouth. They're looking into it, but they think she might have just taken off. Said she's an adult, maybe needed space. But that's not it. She wouldn't leave without her phone. You know her. She never goes anywhere without it. I almost laughed at the irony of him saying that to me. Oh, I knew her. I knew her habits, her lies, the way she'd smile when she was hiding something. But still, something in his tone made the hair on my neck stand up. What made you come here? I asked. He looked at me like he wasn't even sure himself. I didn't know where else to go. I thought maybe she came here. Maybe she'd. He stopped, realizing how ridiculous that sounded. My wife hadn't set foot in this house since the day she walked out. I opened the door wider, letting him step inside. The air between us was thick with ghosts, of her laughter, her perfume, her betrayal. He sat at the kitchen table, in the same chair she used to sit in, his hands shaking as he reached for the glass I slid toward him. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked on the wall, and outside, the wind pressed against the windows like something wanting in. Finally, he said, she'd been different lately. Paranoid. She kept saying someone was watching her. Who? I asked. I don't know. She wouldn't say. Just that she felt followed. She even thought her phone was being tracked. I frowned. Tracked by who? He looked up at me, his eyes wide and wet. You, maybe. That's what she said. The words hit me like a slap. I pushed my chair back, jaw tight. You think I had something to do with this? No, that's not what I meant, he stammered. I'm just telling you what she said. She was scared. She told me if anything happened to her, I should talk to you. I froze. She said that. He nodded slowly. And just like that, the room felt smaller, colder. Because for the first time since she left, I realized something. Mary hadn't just been running from guilt. She'd been running from something else entirely. Something, or someone, that might have finally caught up to her. Tom's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He sat hunched over my kitchen table, staring into the half-empty glass of whiskey like it might give him answers. I didn't offer him comfort. I didn't know him that. The man had slept with my wife, destroyed my family, and yet here he was, trembling like a child, looking at me as if I could save him. Finish your drink, I said flatly. Then you're going to take me to her place. He looked up, startled. The police already searched. I'm not the police, I cut in. We're going. 15 minutes later, we were in my truck, driving through the empty streets of Maple Falls. That's what our town was called. Quiet, safe, the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked. The kind of place where betrayal hid behind trimmed hedges and polite smiles. Neither of us spoke during the drive. The silence between us felt like a wound that never healed. I could still remember the night Mary left. Her voice low but steady as she said, I deserve to be happy, John. You don't make me feel alive anymore. Alive. That's what she called sneaking around with this man. When we pulled into her apartment complex, I could already feel something was off. The lot was half lit, one of the floodlights flickering like it was dying. Her white sedan sat in its usual spot, clean, polished, the way she always kept it. But the driver's side door was cracked open. Tom froze. That wasn't like that earlier. I turned off the engine. You sure? He nodded, swallowing hard. I grabbed the flashlight from my glove box and got out. The wind was cold for October, sharp and biting. The air smelled like wet concrete and pine. Tom followed me as I walked up the steps to her second-floor unit. The door was ajar, just like he'd said. Inside, it was dark. Too dark. I flicked on the flashlight. The beam cut through the shadows, clothes strewn across the floor, a coffee cup tipped over on the counter, a single shoe by the sofa. The place looked like she'd left in a hurry, or like someone had been here. Tom whispered, "It didn't look like this when I left." "Then someone came after you," I said. The words hung in the air. I moved carefully, scanning the living room, the hallway. A framed picture lay face down on the carpet. I bent down and picked it up. It was us. Me and Mary, taken years ago on our anniversary. I felt something twist in my gut. Why would she still have that? She kept that, Tom said behind me, almost like he was reading my mind. Guess so, I muttered. Her bedroom door was half open. I pushed it slowly, and the smell hit me. Her perfume, faint but still there, mixed with something else. Metallic. Sharp. Blood. A small dark stain marked the carpet near the dresser. Not much, but enough to make my stomach tighten. "Jesus," Tom whispered, stepping back. I crouched down. "Don't touch anything." "I told you the cops were here," he said, panic creeping into his voice. "They didn't say anything about blood." I turned to him, flashlight catching his face. Then maybe they missed it. He looked pale, almost sick. "John, you don't think." "I don't think anything yet," I said. But that was a lie. My mind was already racing. She'd told him someone was watching her, that she felt followed. She'd told him to come to me if she disappeared. Why? What did she think I could do? I walked toward the dresser. The drawers were half open, clothes hanging out, like someone had been searching for something. And then I saw it. A small, black leather notebook lying beside a jewelry box. My hands hesitated before I picked it up. The first page had her handwriting. Neat, careful, familiar. "If anything happens to me, don't believe what they tell you." The rest of the page was blank. Tom's voice cracked behind me. "What does it say?" I didn't answer. I just closed the notebook and slid it into my jacket pocket. When I turned back, I noticed something else. The window was open a few inches, and the curtain moved slightly with the wind. I shined the light toward it. There, faintly, on the sill, was a smudge, like someone's boot had pressed into the paint. I leaned closer. There were two prints. One leading in, one leading out. Tom came up beside me. "What is it?" I stared out into the darkness beyond the window. The woods behind her building were silent, pitch black. "Tracks," I said quietly. "Someone came through here." Tom's breathing grew fast. "You think someone took her?" I turned to him slowly. "I think whoever she was running from finally found her." He swallowed, eyes wide. "But who?" She didn't have enemies. I looked around the room one last time, the beam of my flashlight landing again on that photo of her and me, smiling, young, untouched by all this. "She did," I said softly. "She just didn't realize it." I didn't sleep that night. After Tom left, reluctantly, nervously, and with a promise to keep in touch with the police, I sat in my truck outside Mary's apartment complex until dawn. The sun rose pale and cold, spilling light over the trees behind her building. I watched as the world started moving again. People walking dogs, kids waiting for buses, everyone living their lives like nothing terrible had happened. But something had. I could feel it. I went back inside. The cops had taped off the door by morning, but I still had a key, her old one. The yellow tape peeled away like it was nothing. They'd been through here after I left, judging by the boot prints and dusted surfaces. But they didn't find what I did the first time, because they weren't looking for it. They didn't know her like I did. Mary always hid things in plain sight. Her nightstand, for example. It had a false bottom, a trick she learned years ago when we still trusted each other enough to share secrets. I opened the drawer, felt along the inner lip until my thumb caught the seam. I lifted, and there it was, a small silver phone, turned off, with no SIM card inside. Old model. Burner type. I hesitated before powering it on. The battery still had a charge. When it lit up, There was only one app on the screen, voice memos. 9 files, all dated within the last 3 weeks. The last one was time-stamped 11:47 p.m., the night she vanished. I pressed play. Static. Then her voice, trembling, tired, but still hers. If you're hearing this, something's gone wrong. I can't trust anyone anymore. Not Tom, not even. She stopped. A shaky breath followed. He's following me. He knows everything. I keep seeing his truck parked down the street. I tried to tell Tom, but he thinks I'm paranoid. I don't know how to prove it. I wait. There's a noise outside. Then silence. I froze. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She didn't finish the sentence. The next recording began only an hour later. I think I was wrong. It's not John. It's someone else. Someone who knows about the surgeries, the money I took. God, what have I done? The money? My hand tightened around the phone. What money? The third recording started with her whispering. She was crying. I found something in Tom's car. A letter. He's not who he says he is. He's been lying to me. If I disappear, look in the blue box in the storage unit. Number 17. The code is. The audio cut out. Just stopped. My pulse was racing now. I skipped to the final recording, the one from the night she vanished. For 10 seconds, there was nothing but muffled breathing. Then, suddenly, her voice came back, barely a whisper. I hear footsteps outside. Someone's at the door. If I don't make it, tell John I'm sorry. Tell him. A loud thud. Then silence. And the recording ended. I sat there, staring at the phone like it might start speaking again. The room was dead, quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Tell John I'm sorry. Sorry for what? For cheating? For leaving? Or for something else entirely? I looked toward the window. The same faint smudge of a boot print glared back at me in the daylight, leading out into the woods. I pocketed the phone and locked up behind me. The air outside was colder now, the kind of chill that felt like it sank through your skin. I could almost feel her fear lingering in the wind. The storage unit she mentioned, number 17, was only a few miles away. I remembered because it used to be ours. We'd rented it years ago to store old furniture, baby clothes, things from our first house. I hadn't been there since the divorce. When I arrived, the manager didn't even recognize me. I signed the visitor log, drove down the long stretch of corrugated metal doors, and stopped in front of 17. It looked untouched, dusty, forgotten. I entered the code she'd said halfway, just muscle memory filling in what she hadn't finished in the message. The door rolled up with a metallic groan. At first glance, it was ordinary, boxes stacked neatly, some labeled with my handwriting. But in the far corner sat a newer plastic storage bin. Blue, unlabeled. My stomach tightened. I knelt and opened it. Inside were papers, bank statements, IDs, and photos. Dozens of them. All of Tom. Different names, different addresses. Fake driver's licenses, passports, even a social security card that wasn't his. He wasn't Tom Miller. He was Anthony Rhodes. And he had a record. I knew the name. Theft, fraud, identity scams. It had been on the local news years ago. The man had gone to prison, then disappeared after release. Mary had been living with a con artist. Suddenly, everything she said in those recordings made sense. The paranoia, the fear, the money. But there was one more thing at the bottom of the box, a photo of the two of them together, smiling, holding a beach drink. On the back, Mary had written in shaky pen, "If he finds this, he'll kill me." I stood there for a long moment, the air heavy and still around me. Then I heard it, faint but unmistakable, a car door closing outside the unit. I turned. Through the narrow slit of sunlight beneath the rolling door, I saw two shadows moving toward me. One of them was tall, broad-shouldered, the other, smaller, and I recognized the voice that followed. "John, you shouldn't have come here." It was Tom, but he wasn't alone. For a second, I couldn't move. My mind split into two voices, one screaming at me to run, the other whispering that I needed answers. The metallic taste of adrenaline hit the back of my tongue. The shadows stretched closer beneath the door. I grabbed the photo of Mary and the fake IDs, shoved them into my jacket, and stepped behind a stack of boxes. The gravel outside crunched under boots. "John." Tom's voice again, smoother now. "Calm. Too calm. I saw your truck out front. I figured I'd find you here." The padlock chain rattled as he lifted the door. Sunlight flooded in, cutting across the concrete floor. He walked in slow, his expression unreadable. Behind him, another man followed, heavier, wearing a leather jacket and dark sunglasses even though the morning light was dim. I didn't know him. "What are you doing here, Tom?" I asked, stepping out from behind the boxes. He gave a tight smile. "I could ask you the same thing. I came for answers. About Mary." He glanced at the stranger, then back at me. "You should have stayed out of it, John." "Stayed out of what?" The other man stepped forward slightly. His presence filled the space, quiet, dangerous. There was a small tattoo on his neck, the kind that told stories nobody wanted to hear. "Who's he?" I asked. Tom hesitated. "This is Mason. He's helping me look for her." I let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah, I'll bet he is. You two look like search and rescue." Mason didn't smile. He just stared, eyes flat. "We came to pick something up," he said. His voice was low, gravelly, the kind that didn't need to get loud to be threatening. "Something that belongs to Mary." "Funny," I said, "because everything in here belongs to me." Tom's eyes flicked to the corner, right where the blue bin sat. He took a step toward it. Instinctively, I moved in front of him. "Don't," I said. He froze. "John, please. You don't understand. That box has things that can ruin people. I just need to make it disappear." "Yeah," I said, "I saw that." His face drained of color. "What did you see?" "Oh, you know," I said, my voice sharp. "A few names that aren't yours. Passports. Bank records. Enough to tell me that you've been lying to everyone, including her." Mason shifted his weight, glancing between us. "He knows," he muttered to Tom. "Yeah," I said, taking a small step back toward the wall, my hand brushing against a metal rod sticking out from one of the shelves. "I know plenty. Like how you conned her. How you took her money and probably scared her into running. Did you kill her, Tom?" He flinched like I'd struck him. "No. I loved her." "Don't you dare say that," I hissed. "You don't destroy someone you love. She was supposed to leave with me," he shouted, the calm cracking. "We had money saved, hers and mine. We were going to start over. But she got scared, said she didn't trust me anymore. She said she was going to the cops. That's when..." He stopped himself. "That's when what?" I pressed. Tom's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked to Mason again, but the other man just stood there like a statue. "She called someone," Tom said finally, quieter. "Said she had proof. I think that's what got her killed." The words hung between us, heavy as lead. "Killed by who?" I asked. Tom shook his head. "I don't know." But Mason stepped forward, slow and deliberate, until he was only a few feet from me. "That's enough," he said. "Hand over the box, John." "Not a chance." "Then this gets ugly." I gripped the metal rod tighter. "Go ahead. Make it ugly." For a long second, none of us moved. The air felt thick enough to choke on. Then Mason lunged. I swung. The rod connected with his arm, a solid metallic crack that echoed through the unit. He grunted, stumbled back. Tom shouted something, and suddenly all three of us were colliding, fists, metal, and chaos. The blue bin tipped over, scattering papers across the floor. IDs fluttered like leaves. Mason grabbed my shoulder and slammed me against the wall, but I drove my knee into his ribs. He staggered, gasping. Tom bent to grab the papers. I caught his wrist mid-motion. "You're not taking those," I growled. He looked terrified now, panting. "You don't understand. If Mason doesn't get those, we're both dead." Mason straightened, eyes burning. "You talk too much, Tom." Then he pulled a gun. Everything stopped. The noise of the world fell away, just the soft hum of my heartbeat and the faint scrape of my breath. "Put it down," I said, though my voice barely came out. Mason shook his head. "You should have stayed out of this, John. You don't know what she was mixed up in." "Try me." He took a step closer, gun steady. "She took money that wasn't hers. A lot of it. My employers don't forgive theft." "Your employers?" I repeated. "Who are you?" "Someone cleaning up a mess." And then, before I could react, a siren wailed in the distance, sharp, growing louder. "Police." Mason cursed under his breath. "You called them?" I stared him down. "Maybe she did." He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the open door. Then he backed away, gun still raised. "This isn't over," he said to me. Then to Tom. "You'd better pray they find her before we do." They ran. By the time the police cars screeched into the lot, both men were gone, the echoes of their footsteps swallowed by the sound of sirens. I stood there, chest heaving, surrounded by papers that told a story darker than anything I'd imagined. But one thought burned hotter than the rest. If Mason was telling the truth, If Mary really had taken something from people like him, then she wasn't missing. She was running. And maybe, just maybe, she was still alive. The cops combed through the storage unit for hours. They asked their questions in that dry, procedural way, where everything you say gets written down, but nothing feels heard. I told them about the fight, the gun, the threats. They took notes, nodded, and promised to look into it. I could tell by their eyes they didn't buy half of it. To them, I was just the bitter ex-husband poking around where I shouldn't. When they were done, they took the blue bin, the papers, the fake IDs, everything, except for one thing. A tiny laminated card that had slid beneath a wooden pallet during the scuffle. I found it after they left. It was one of the fake driver's licenses. The photo was of Tom, but the name read Anthony Rhodes. I turned it over and felt something strange. The card was thicker than normal, heavier. There was a faint seam along one edge. When I pried at it with my thumb, the plastic split open, revealing a small black USB drive embedded inside. My stomach dropped. I didn't take it to the police. Not yet. Something about that drive felt personal, like it was meant for me. That night, back home, I sat at my desk, the same one Mary used to pay bills on, the same desk where we'd signed our divorce papers, and plugged the drive into my laptop. It took a moment to load, then a single file appeared, VID_1030. MOV. The timestamp was 3 days before she vanished. My hand hovered over the mouse. I hesitated. Then I clicked. The screen flickered. For a moment, all I saw was static. Then her face filled the frame. Mary. She was sitting in her apartment, eyes red, hair messy like she hadn't slept. There was a fear in her expression I'd never seen before, not even during the fights, not even when she left me. John, she said. My chest tightened. If you're seeing this, something's gone wrong. She glanced over her shoulder, as if making sure no one was behind her. I don't have much time. You were right about Tom, about Anthony. He's not who he says he is. I found out what he's been doing, who he works for. I made copies of everything, every transfer, every account. They were stealing from investors, laundering money through fake construction contracts. Millions, John. Millions. She swallowed hard, voice trembling. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could turn him in, but someone found out. Someone higher up. Anthony told me they'd come after me if I didn't keep quiet. I didn't believe him. Not until last night. She paused, wiping at her eyes. A man came to my door. Said he worked for the people Anthony used to work for. Said I had something that belonged to them. I told him I didn't know what he was talking about, but he didn't believe me. He said they'd be watching, that I couldn't hide. Her breathing quickened. I made this video because I need you to understand. I never meant to hurt you. I know you hate me for what I did, and you have every reason to. But please believe me when I say I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I was scared, and I thought, maybe with him, I'd be safe. Her voice broke on the last word. I was wrong. She looked straight into the camera, straight at me. If they find me, don't let them bury the truth. The money, it's in the place where it all started. You'll know what that means. And John. She hesitated, biting her lip, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry. For everything. The screen went black. For a long time, I couldn't move. My body felt heavy, like gravity had doubled. I wanted to be angry, to feel vindicated that she'd finally admitted everything. But all I could think about was her voice saying my name like that. She was scared, terrified, and now she was gone. The place where it all started. Her words echoed in my head. What did she mean? And then it hit me. The old cabin. The one my family used to own out by Lake Shasta. The same cabin where she and I spent our honeymoon. And the same place she made me promise we'd never sell. We'd gone there every year for our anniversary until things fell apart. I hadn't been back since the divorce. If that's what she meant, then whatever she'd hidden, money, evidence, the truth, it was waiting for me there. I packed a bag, loaded my shotgun, and threw the laptop into the truck. The night was cold, the roads empty. The drive to Shasta took 4 hours. By the time I reached the turnoff, the sky was a deep navy, the lake glinting in the distance under the moonlight. The cabin sat in the trees like something forgotten by time, dusted with years of pine needles and silence. I parked, cut the engine, and listened. The wind rustled through the branches, the kind of sound that can make your mind play tricks. Then, as I stepped out, I noticed something. A faint glow inside the cabin. Someone was already there. I moved quietly, keeping to the shadows, my pulse thudding in my ears. Through the front window, I saw a movement, a figure bent over the table, flashlights sweeping across the floorboards. And when the figure turned toward the window, I froze. It wasn't Tom. It was a woman, and she looked exactly like Mary. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. It was her, or someone who could have been her reflection. Same soft blonde hair, same way she pushed it behind her ear when she was concentrating. She moved through the cabin with the same restless rhythm I remembered from all those quiet nights we'd spent there. My mind told me it couldn't be real. My heart didn't care. I crept closer to the window, careful not to step on the gravel. The glass was fogged from the cold, but I could still see her. She was searching, opening drawers, lifting floorboards. Whatever she was looking for, she needed it badly. Mary. The word escaped me before I could stop it. She froze. Her head snapped toward the sound. For a second, our eyes met through the window, hers wide and terrified. Then she bolted toward the back door. I ran around the cabin. Mary, wait. By the time I reached the back steps, she was gone into the trees, the beam of a flashlight flickering between the trunks. I followed, branches snapping under my boots, my breath clouding in the freezing air. Mary, I shouted again. It's me. It's John. The light ahead paused, then vanished. Silence fell over the woods, so thick I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I stopped, trying to listen. Nothing. Then, from behind me, a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." I spun around. She was standing 10 feet away, flashlight pointed at the ground, her other hand trembling around the strap of a small canvas bag. She looked thinner, paler, like the last few months had drained the life from her. "Mary," I breathed. Her eyes filled with tears. "You shouldn't have come. You're alive." My voice cracked. "They said you were missing." Tom said. "Don't say his name." She shook her head violently. "He's not what you think. None of them are." I stepped forward slowly, hands raised. "Then tell me, Mary. Tell me what's going on." She looked around, scanning the dark woods like she expected someone to step out at any second. "We don't have time. They're coming." "Who?" Her lips trembled. "The people Anthony worked for. He tried to double-cross them. When I found out, I copied their files, the bank transfers, the shell companies, all of it. I thought if I held on to the proof, I could protect myself." I stared at her. "You told me you hid the money here." She hesitated. "Not money. Information. Enough to put them all away. Then we go to the police." Her laugh was short and bitter. "You really think the police can protect me from them?" She looked down, pulling something from her bag, a small metal case, about the size of a paperback. "This is what they want." I could feel the tension in my chest growing tighter by the second. "What's in it?" "Encrypted financial records. Names, accounts, wire transfers. Proof of where every dollar went." She looked up at me, her voice breaking. I was going to turn it in, but I waited too long. Before I could say anything else, the sound of tires crunched on gravel somewhere down the road. Headlights flashed between the trees. Her face went pale. "They found us." "Get inside," I said, grabbing her hand. It felt cold, almost weightless. We ran back toward the cabin, ducking low as the first car door slammed shut. A man's voice echoed through the woods. "Mary, it's over. Just give us what's ours." "Mason." I pushed her toward the door. "Go." We scrambled inside and locked it behind us. I killed the lights, peering through the window. 2 men, flashlights sweeping, guns visible under their jackets. Mason was in front. The other one I didn't recognize. "They won't stop," Mary whispered. I looked at her, my mind spinning. "We can make it to the back trail. It leads down to the lake." She shook her head. "No, they'll cut us off." The footsteps outside drew closer. Mason's voice again, calm, steady, terrifying. "John, I know you're in there. I told you this wasn't over." I reached for the shotgun by the door. "You're right," I muttered. Mary grabbed my arm. "Don't." "Mary, they'll kill you," she said. Her voice cracked. "Please, just listen." She pressed the metal case into my hands. "If anything happens to me, take this to the FBI office in Sacramento. Ask for Agent Harper. She's the only one who knows." The doorknob rattled. "Open up," Mason shouted. Mary looked at me, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Promise me, John. I'm not leaving you. Promise me." The door exploded inward before I could answer, with splintering, hinges screaming. Mason stepped through the dust and darkness, gun raised. The other man fanned left, circling. I fired once. The blast shook the walls. Mason ducked, the shot tearing through the doorframe. Mary screamed. Then there was a second gunshot, but it wasn't mine. Mary stumbled backward, clutching her shoulder. Mary! I caught her as she fell, her blood hot against my hand. Mason aimed again, but I fired blind, shattering the oil lamp on the table. Flames leapt instantly, roaring up the walls. Let's go, the other man shouted. Smoke filled the room. Mason backed out, eyes narrowing. You just signed your own death warrant, John. Then they were gone, retreating into the trees as the fire spread. I dragged Mary toward the back door, choking on smoke. We made it outside just as the flames reached the ceiling. She collapsed against the dirt, trembling. Hold on, I said, pressing my jacket against her wound. She looked up at me, eyes glassy, tears cutting through the soot on her face. You still have it. I nodded. Yeah, I've got it. Don't let them take it, she whispered. Her body went limp in my arms. I pressed my fingers to her neck. There was still a pulse, faint, but there, far off in the distance, I could hear sirens, maybe from the fire, maybe from the shots. Either way, they were coming. I looked down at her, then at the case in my hand, and I knew there was no going back. The people she'd crossed weren't going to stop, and now they'd come for both of us. I picked her up, carried her toward the trees, and didn't look back as our cabin, burned to the ground behind us. The fire was still visible in the rearview mirror, an orange glow pulsing through the dark trees like a dying heartbeat. I drove fast, too fast, headlights cutting through the fog curling off the lake road. Every few seconds, I checked the rearview again, half expecting to see another pair of headlights gaining on us. Mary was in the passenger seat, wrapped in a blanket from the back seat, her shoulder bandaged with my torn-up shirt. She'd lost a lot of blood, but she was conscious. Barely. Stay with me, I said quietly, one hand steady on the wheel, the other brushing her arm. Her eyes fluttered open. Where are we going? Hospital, I said. She shook her head weakly. No hospitals. They'll find me there. They'll find you if you bleed out in my truck too. John, please, she whispered. Just drive north. There's a town called Red Hollow, maybe 40 minutes from here. There's someone there I trust. I didn't argue. Not yet. I drove. The road curved and dipped, the forest on both sides pressing close, tall and silent. The sky was a smear of gray dawn just starting to form behind the hills. I couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd looked at me before she collapsed, the raw fear, the pleading, and underneath that, guilt, the kind that sticks to a person's voice. You're going to have to start talking, Mary, I said finally. If you want me to believe anything, now's the time. She stared out the window for a long moment before answering. They're called Vectra Holdings. On paper, they're a real estate firm. But it's a front. They move money for people who can't afford to have their names on paper. Cartels, politicians, even companies that want to dodge sanctions. Anthony worked for them. She nodded weakly. He managed transfers, offshore accounts, fake contracts. I didn't know at first. He told me he worked in asset management. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to. I was too busy pretending I'd made the right choice leaving you. Her voice cracked on that last line, but I kept my eyes on the road. Then what happened? I started noticing things. The phone calls at midnight, the hidden envelopes of cash, the trips he couldn't explain. When I confronted him, he laughed, said I'd better enjoy the money while it lasted, because soon it wouldn't be ours anymore. What money? The $10 million he stole from Vectra before they found out. He transferred it to accounts in fake names, including mine. That's why they think I have it. $10 million. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Do you? I asked quietly. She hesitated. Not all of it. Some's gone. I moved what I could, split it across smaller accounts so they couldn't trace it. But they think I kept the records as leverage, which means they'll never stop until they get them. I exhaled slowly. And the man tonight? Mason? He was Vectra's enforcer, she said. They used him to clean up problems. Anthony told me he'd done things, violent things, for them. But when Mason found out Anthony had stolen from them, he switched sides. I think he's working for someone else now. Someone even worse. The forest thinned ahead, giving way to open road and a pale sliver of sunrise. Mary, I said after a long silence, you said there's someone in Red Hollow. Who? Her name's Harper. FBI. She was building a case against Vectra years ago before it got buried. She's the one I was supposed to give the files to. So that wasn't just paranoia? She gave a weak smile. Guess not. We drove another half hour before the lights of Red Hollow came into view. A quiet mountain town with a single main street and a diner that looked like it hadn't changed since the 70s. I pulled behind an old motel, helped her out of the truck, and got us a room under a fake name. She winced as I eased her down onto the bed. You need rest, I said. I'll find this Harper woman. Her fingers gripped my wrist weakly. No, don't go alone. They'll be watching. I can handle myself. Her eyes met mine, glassy but sharp. That's what scares me. For a moment, the room went quiet except for the hum of the old air conditioner. The sun was just rising now, spilling a faint gold light across the threadbare carpet. She looked so fragile there, pale, trembling, but still somehow defiant. And even after everything, the lies, the cheating, the wreckage, a part of me still wanted to protect her. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing a hand over my face. You think Harper's still around? She never stopped looking, Mary whispered. She reached out to me last month. Said she had proof Vectra was laundering through state contracts. I think that's why they came after me. They thought she and I were working together. I stood up. Then I'll find her. And if she's real, maybe we can finally end this. Mary's hand fell from my wrist, her breathing slow but steady. Exhaustion took her, and she slipped into a shallow sleep. I watched her for a moment, then pulled the metal case from my jacket and set it on the table beside her. The lock was small, brass, and old-fashioned. I had this sudden urge to open it, to see what was inside that was worth killing for. But then I remembered her voice, trembling but certain. Don't let them take it. So I didn't. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and stepped out into the morning air. The world was quiet again, but it didn't feel safe. Because parked across the street, half hidden behind a gas station sign, was a black SUV with tinted windows. Engine off, but I could see the faint glow of a cigarette inside. Someone was watching, and they hadn't followed her. They'd followed me. The cigarette ember flared once, a small, glowing eye in the dark interior of the SUV. Then it went out. Whoever was inside knew that I'd seen them. I didn't move right away. I just stood there under the weak light of the motel sign, pretending to check my phone while my pulse hammered against my ribs. A few heartbeats later, the SUV's door opened with a slow, deliberate click. A man stepped out, tall, broad, wearing a windbreaker and a ball cap pulled low. He didn't look like Mason or one of Vectra's hired men. He looked official. John Hubble, he called quietly. I kept my hand near the small pistol tucked behind my waistband. Who's asking? He held up an ID, letting the streetlight catch the lettering. Agent Harper, FBI. I blinked. You're Harper? Last I checked. She, because now that I could see clearly, the cap came off to reveal sharp eyes and a thin braid of dark hair. Gave me a quick once-over. Where is she? Inside, I said, still wary. You're real, then. She didn't make you up. I wish she had. Harper's tone was flat. We've been tracking Vectra for years. When your wife reached out, we thought she was ready to testify. Then she disappeared. We assumed the worst. She's alive, I said. Barely. She's hurt. Then we don't have much time. Harper nodded toward the room. Let's get her out of here before they circle back. We moved fast. Harper swept the room like she'd done it 1,000 times, checking corners, curtains, vents. Mary stirred when we came in, blinking up at the agent. Harper, she whispered. You came. Always do, Harper said. You have the data? Mary pointed weakly to the small metal case on the table. Harper picked it up, inspected the lock, and smiled grimly. Still sealed. That's a good sign. What's in there exactly? I asked. Everything, Harper said. Names, account numbers, wire transfers. Enough to bury half of Vectra's board and a few of their partners in Washington. She turned to Mary. We can put you in protective custody, but we have to move now. Mary shook her head. No protection. They'll find me. Not if we do it right. I helped Mary to her feet. She was weak, but standing, clutching my arm. We moved toward the door, but before Harper could open it, glass shattered. The first bullet tore through the window and buried itself in the wall. Down, Harper shouted, pulling her sidearm. I dropped, dragging Mary to the floor as another shot hit the doorframe. The sound of screeching tires followed, the SUV across the street. Mason was back. Harper returned fire through the window, her movements fast and clean. We're pinned, she said. The gunfire stopped. Silence. Then a voice, rough and familiar. Agent Harper, I just want the case. You can walk away. Mason. Harper met my eyes. He won't stop. I looked at Mary, pale and shaking beside me. Then we ended. Harper nodded once. Bathroom window. Go. I'll cover you. What about you? Go. We crawled through the narrow window into the back alley. Cold air hit like ice. I pulled Mary toward the truck parked behind the building. She was fading, mumbling my name over and over. Hang on, I said, lifting her into the passenger seat. A shadow moved at the end of the alley. Mason. He was limping, gun raised. You should have stayed out of this, John. I slammed the door and ducked behind the truck as he fired. The bullet ricocheted off the hood with a metallic scream. I fired back, 1, 2, 3 shots. He ducked, swearing. Then another shot rang out, sharper, closer. Mason jerked once, stumbled, and fell. Harper stood behind him, her gun still smoking. Told you to go, she said, breathing hard. I stared at Mason's body. The man who'd burned our home, who'd hunted my wife like prey, was finally still. Is it over? I asked. Harper looked at me, then at the case clutched in her hand. Not even close. But it's a start. We drove out of Red Hollow with the first light of morning breaking through the clouds. Mary was quiet, her head resting against the window, her face ghost pale but alive. At the edge of town, she whispered, John? Yeah? I don't deserve this. You helping me? I swallowed hard. Maybe not, but you're still my wife, and I can't let them erase you. Tears welled in her eyes. I was wrong about you. Yeah, I said, a bitter smile tugging at my mouth. You were. Harper rode ahead in her car, the metal case on the seat beside her, heading toward Sacramento. That was her war now. Mine was different. Mine was learning how to live with the ghost of a woman who'd broken me and then somehow still needed saving. As the road stretched out before us, Mary closed her eyes, finally drifting into a fragile sleep. For the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. Just empty. Somewhere behind us, the ashes of our cabin were still smoldering. But in front of us, there was at least the possibility of something else, something like peace. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all the justice either of us was ever going to get.